This is the Grind to Greatness podcast, your dose of unapologetic tough love. These are your hosts, Mary Hodges and Ashley Kane.
Everybody, welcome to the Grind to Greatness podcast. I'm Ashley Kane, your host, and I have Mary here with me. She's the host too, Mary Hodges. She's a lawyer. And remember when we talked about vision and we talked about goal setting? This is the episode where it gets super real. This episode is all about self-doubt and fear. And we have a ton of shit to talk about in this episode. This is going to get really real, like I said. So Mary's going to go into some stuff that she loves to talk about. And we're going to go back to creating a vision. We're going to talk, of course, about our favorite book. You can guess what that is. And Mary?
Sure, I'll take it from here. I'm sure many of you guys know that fear and self-doubt are some of the primary reasons that people fail to live up to their potential. And the interesting thing about it is that fear and self-doubt are all just false perceptions. And we're going to get into that as we go through the episode. But the cool thing is that if you can learn how to overcome fear and self-doubt, then you can begin to live a more fulfilled life. So let's kind of start off with dissecting what fear is. And of course, we're going to go into my favorite part, the science segment. You guys know how much I love science. So the interesting thing I learned about fear from one of my favorite people on earth, Mel Robbins, is that fear is a physical state in our bodies. And it has the same components as the physical state we're in when we're experiencing excitement. How cool is that, right? So your body's going through the same physical changes. You might be sweating, your heart's racing, you feel a little butterfly in your stomach. But the only difference between fear and excitement is the way you perceive that reality. So two people could be experiencing the same type of physical changes in their body, and one person could be associating that with fear and the other person with excitement. And this brings me to a story I heard from Tony Robbins about, somebody he knew that was an artist that before they would go on stage and perform, they would get this overwhelming sense of anxiety, sweating, heart racing. And it became so debilitating that they ended up not being able to perform on stage anymore. Well, the same, another artist, I think it was Bruce Springsteen, he said, described those same physical changes in their body right before he got to go on stage. And instead of feeling fear about that experience, he always said to himself, this is how I know I'm getting ready to have a kick-ass show. So that's just something really cool that I learned when preparing this episode, was that it's like, well, they're really the same exact thing. It's just about how we perceive what we're going through. And our favorite person, Mel Robbins, has some advice on how, if you're feeling fear about something, how can you overcome that? And we've talked to you guys about the 5-second rule so many times. In fact, we're going to really, really encourage you to download it and read it if you haven't after this episode. But what you can do is kind of count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and give yourself an anchor thought. So if you're afraid of speaking to, your coworkers when you have to give a presentation, think of an anchor thought that makes you feel excited about whatever it is you're getting ready to do. Mel's example is her fear of flying. So she used to have extreme anxiety around flying. And instead of thinking about how afraid she would get when she'd fly, as soon as she felt her body going into that physical state, she would think about something exciting about the trip she was getting ready to take. So that's a really, really interesting concept. Ashley, do you have anything to weigh in on that?
Yes, Mary, I do have some thoughts on that. I want to talk a little bit about the perception is your reality, because it's really in the fundamentals of attracting the life that you want is your reality. And it is really how you feel. So your reality is your experience. So for an example, the easiest way to kind of think about it is a relationship. Most people can relate to that with a significant other. So this person, to your perception, maybe they're you don't like how they talk to you. Maybe you've recalled instances where they've said things or done things or sent you text messages, or maybe you just don't like how they treat you in general. But their experience of that is probably something that you did to trigger them. And your experiences of that is that, maybe they talk down to you. So it's really about being aware that everyone has a different perception, and that feeling of fear that you're having is just how you're perceiving things. And Eric Thomas, in one of his newer videos, he says, imagine if you looked at yourself how the world looks at you, not how you see yourself. And I was like, damn. I was like, that's hella deep.
Yes, Ashley and I watched that Eric Thomas video together, and we both we looked at each other like, damn, we love that guy.
That blew us away.
Yeah, we love that guy. He has so many prolific, moments where he says something that just resonates deeply. Another thing about fear that I thought was cool, another guy that I really like watching online, his name is Brendan Burchard. He's one of the highest paid, high performance coaches out there. He calls fear bad management of our own mental faculties. I thought that was kind of funny. But he describes that fear usually comes into our lives centered around three types of pain. There's loss pain, which is like the fear that you're going to lose something. If you do something new, you're going to lose something. So if you're thinking about starting a business, you might be worried that you're going to lose your steady paycheck. Or if you're thinking about moving somewhere, you might be worried about losing your close relationships with the people you know. So that's loss pain. Instead of thinking about the loss, what we need to do is think about the gains. What would we gain by doing this new thing? Process pain is the idea that change is hard. And that's just, change is hard. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. It's a difficult process.
That's
and so
like the gym.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no pain, no gain, right? Mm-hmm. Good point there, Ashley.
Yeah, totally the gym.
And instead of thinking about the pain associated with the change, feel excitement about the challenge. And then there's outcome pain. Well, what if the grass is not greener on the other side? What if I take this opportunity and I hate it? What if I start this business and I fail? It's kind of like the fear around the uncertainty. When he broke it down those three different ways, I really enjoyed that because it kind of, gives a blueprint of those three different types of fears and what we can do instead of, again, changing our perception around the reality. What can we do instead of feeling those pain? Because if we're constantly focusing on what pain we're going to be feeling, our brain is going to literally try to avoid that at all costs. It's just the way our brain works. It's a survival mechanism. All right. So if we're focusing on all the pain that could possibly happen from change that we know we need, right? We know we need this change. But if we're constantly focused on the fear of that pain, so in whatever way, our brain is going to do everything they can to avoid it.
I actually like having those three breakdowns because for me, I know a great way to use knowing those three types of pain is a quick fix. So you feel the fear and then you can identify what kind of fear is this? Am I feeling that I'm going to lose something? Am I feeling that this is a hard process, or am I scared of what's going to happen next? And then I can go, okay, so this is a loss of pain. And then you can talk yourself through it and then turn it into, how am I going to fix this fear? Or just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1-ing it. So I love that. It actually gives you some insight to how you're feeling, which is super important in this piece, because if you can't recognize that, which we'll get into in a minute, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, another thing too is both Mel and Brendan both talk about the competence loop, right? So the more you become competent around something, for instance, when I started my business, I had no idea how to start a business, right? So there was a lot of fear associated with getting out there and doing the things I needed to do to build. But once I got out there and once I started doing those things and learning, you become more competent, therefore you become more confident. And you have less and less fear around the things that you have confidence about. And I know the common fears that people have around success are the fear of failure, the fear, and that goes to the outcome. What if I do this and I fit and it's not what I want? The outcome is not what I want. I know for me, the fear of what other people think was huge. Part of the reason I didn't, start a podcast for the 2 years that I thought about it was because I had this fear, and it's so silly when I say it out loud, but I had this fear around, like, what if people don't care what I have to say? Then I had to finally break down and tell myself, it doesn't really matter. You have something of value that you want to offer to the world. And what if there's somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say? I want you guys to think about, while we're going through this, think about some of the fears that you've had in your life. Actually, why don't you share one of your biggest fears?
My fear, actually, I can relate it to the podcast like Mary did, making it perfect. Because I wanted all this production, and it's like I had to find the right co-host. I made a lot of excuses, but at the time, they didn't feel like excuses. But looking back, once I'm finally doing it, because like you say, once you say it out loud, it sounds silly. You know what I mean? And that's a great thing to do, is just be open, even if in your room by yourself, just say what you're scared of, and then you're like, oh really, I'm scared of that. I had a coaching session over the weekend. I loved it because we both got to share some of our self-talk and self-doubts, and we both got to share some things that we love about each other. And I think you do have to have that balance. But going back to that competence confidence loop, that's what I was explaining to her in this coaching session. I use the gym, for example, because I can relate. So always been inconsistent with the gym. And I use that so me and her could relate to each other. She wants to feel more confident about her outer appearances. And one of her things was to be able to just feel good about her body. So I said, why don't you just start? Do one thing, do one squat, then the next day do 2, the next day do 3, go to the gym for 30 minutes. Just do it once or twice a week. At least you're building the confidence. And when you go in there for the 4th time, the 5th time, you feel better. And then you may want to start doing it more. At least dabble. You got to get your feet wet a little bit and dabble in the fear and just do it anyways.
In my experience with like building confidence, it's really in the follow through, because a lot of people, especially when it comes to health and fitness, if you have insecurities around your appearance, well, how do you give somebody confidence that hates how they look? And I think there's too much focus centered around like outer appearance. Well, you really start to build the confidence by following through, because when you tell yourself you're going to do something and we don't do it, we don't follow through, we chip away at our confidence every time we do that. When we say, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the gym, and you follow through, you always feel good. We always feel good after we do what we say we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So that's such a huge, but more so than ever your outer appearance could be, it's your follow through. Because, we all know that there's like really smoking hot people out there that have the confidence of, just low self-esteem. Oh, yeah. So
totally. It's so balanced.
So it's, the confidence loop is just getting out there, continuing to do it, continuing to try it, learning more, becoming more knowledgeable. And then over time, you start to break down those barriers. And I think this is a good segue to kind of talk about, to really get into the self-doubt conversation and talk about, what limiting beliefs are and why they plague us so much.
A limiting belief is a conscious or subconscious belief about oneself, and that belief minimizes how you feel, and it actually minimizes your potential in that area. And you may see someone succeeding in one area but failing in the other. A great career and income, but your health is terrible. Sometimes people's limiting beliefs spread through multiple areas of life and to other people. So how are limiting beliefs created, Mary?
Well, of course, I got to come in for the science part of things because I love science. But our brains and our nervous systems process so much information throughout the day. Millions and millions of data points throughout the day. But we only have the capability to really process a few at a time. So we're typically unaware of all of the signals that are coming in throughout our lives because only a few of them actually reach our consciousness. And the ones that reach our consciousness, the ones that form our perception of reality, those are the beliefs that are strongest in our nervous system. A lot of times that has to do with the things that we focus the most time on. So our thoughts are the things that really kind of shape what our reality is. It's exactly what we were talking about before when we were talking about the difference between fear and excitement is simply your brain's perception of the situation. The interesting thing about limiting beliefs is just the fact that they can be formed in a number of ways. Our childhood, an experience we've had, one statement that somebody's made to us, multiple repeated statements of some, or experiences around some area. And so there's a lot of things that could happen or that are at play that really form how we think and feel about certain things. Since our reality is merely a perception of our strongest thoughts and feelings, the good news is that we can change our reality by changing our perception.
I want to say something real quick about the feelings and the perception and all that. So your feelings turn into your thoughts, and your thoughts become things. I'm sure everyone's heard that. It all circles around your perception of self and perception of your experience. And when you have those thoughts of self-doubt, they turn into a feeling, and then you start taking things personally. It could be a business conversation and you take something personally, or maybe they're projecting themselves onto you and then you start taking it personally. I mean, there's so many subconscious thoughts around this, but to be aware that your thoughts create your feelings can help anyone tremendously in breaking down those self-doubt and self-talk barriers.
We have a couple of steps for you guys, and we're going to, I think because this episode is really deep, we're going to bring it full circle at the end and kind of summarize everything we've gone on. But we want to talk about, okay, now that we know that our perception is just the culmination of our strongest thoughts and our strongest signals, how can we change that? Well, like Ashley said, awareness. The first step is bringing it into your awareness. Awareness is everything. And we talk about this in the last couple episodes. We encourage you guys to download our Life Designer Toolkit because the first exercise in there is called an honesty hour. And the honesty hour is going to really help you go deep. And I know it helped me, and I know it helped Ashley when we all did it. It's going to help us go deep into our current state. Where are we? Are we doing what we want to do? What is holding us back? Why don't we think we can have everything in life? Why don't we think that we're capable of doing things? So it really puts you in a position where you have to ask yourself the hard questions. And the great thing I love about honesty hours is that you cannot place blame on anybody else. It's not a blame game. It's not time for the blame game. It's time to get 100% real about what you are doing or not doing to create your reality. That really, I think, is the first step, awareness. Ashley, I know Ashley loves the topic of awareness, so she's looking at me like, get the hell off this microphone so I can say something.
You attracted everything in your life. You attracted everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the crazy. You attracted it all. I know that's hard to believe or hard to admit. And even when I knew that, and I found that out, say, 10 years ago, I still didn't really get it until recently. I have become so self-aware since doing this podcast. If you want some self-awareness, go check out Ayana Van Zant on YouTube. This lady gets down on the self-awareness because you can't blame anyone. You have to forgive the people that you need to forgive that have done something wrong to you, but you love them. Parents, loved ones, siblings. You have to forgive yourself because that's the most important thing. And you have to be real. Be real with yourself, because the more you are in denial and you do the procrastination game where you're not wanting to do the inevitable, the more you are effing your life up.
There it is. All right. She dropped the mic, guys.
The grind of greatness is here.
The metaphorical mic was just dropped. We've been talking about this. Perception is reality. And a lot of times the things we feel self-doubt around and the things that we feel self-conscious around, the person that might be making us feel that way has a completely different perception of that same situation. And I know I've had that where somebody's done something that kind of upsets me. And when I address it after having an open conversation with that person, realizing like, oh, well, to me, it seemed like this and this is how I felt. But then you realize after talking to that person, they're like, well, that's not how I was looking at it at all. It was actually like this. And you're like, oh, okay, wow. Now I feel better. A lot of times it's just that awareness. It's that awareness with yourself. And it's that awareness being able to have those conversations with other people when they do things that upset you. So that's huge. And again, the honesty hour isn't an exercise to, you might feel like shit, but the purpose of the exercise isn't because we want you to feel like shit. We want you to have clarity because clarity is power. Right. This is an empowering exercise for you to be able to actually face what's going on in your life. It's not like we want you guys to feel like shit. Yeah, it's tough. We're all about tough love. So
Tough Love podcast.
This is part of what has to be done if people really want to move forward. Once you have that awareness, once you understand, okay, I have fears around this. I have self-doubt around this. I don't think I'm worthy. I don't think I deserve this because I don't think people like me, whatever the case may be. Once you kind of dissect and you understand what those are, now it's time to rewrite the story. Like I said, before starting this podcast, I had a lot of fear around, and again, every time I say it out loud, it sounds so silly. So say your fears out loud, because I really think once you do that, you'll realize like, this is so stupid. But when I was worried about what are people going to think about me, what if they don't care what I have to say, I flipped the script. I have something of value to offer to other people. And that is the truth. So that's the thing that you have to focus on.
That kind of goes back to what I was saying when I kind of quoted Eric Thomas. What if you could look at yourself how the world looks at you? He has a couple of videos and we'll put in the show notes. He has a really good story about how someone taught him that lesson. So that's really powerful. I just want to add that in because it goes back to that. The most important thing I would love to cover right now is the power of I am. A lot of people who study spiritual stuff probably have heard this before, but if you haven't, it's about being self-aware of your words. Whatever you say I am, you become. I talked about this in the episode, the money mindset episode. So if you say I am BROKE, which I'm not saying that because I'm not, then you will continue to be that. I am is so important because that is the core of self-talk. I am, you say it to yourself, you say it out loud to people. It's like, why do we treat ourselves so bad? And we are our biggest critics. The power of I am is so essential to squashing the self-doubt that you have to continue to practice it day in and day out. Whenever you have that thought come into your head, you have to constantly correct yourself, and that will help you change your story. That's just one step in the beginning that you can do to change your story. You may not catch yourself every time, but if you can get into the good habit of using your I ams, and don't let other people put labels on you either. Don't let people tell you that you are a label. Like, I hate when people would say to me, you're a procrastinator. I hated that because I feel like I may have been that a minute ago, but what am I right now?
That's really awesome. The I am statements are really powerful. Now that you got your awareness, you're starting to rewrite the story. Don't ever forget to go back to your vision and your goals. That's got to be the thing that keeps us moving forward, even when times get hard, right? There has to be that ultimate reason. Making sure you have that strong vision and that you're always referring back to that and you're always on track with your goals, because the fear and self-doubt is going to get in the way. So we got to keep ourselves motivated along the way. And again, you guys, we've talked about this book so much, but the reason we talk about it is because it's so life-changing that we're literally making this an action step for you guys. And we're going to have a link to get the audiobook or the Kindle book or however you like to read books. We're going to have a link in the show notes. For those of you out there that don't read, if you're going to start back reading, this should be the book to read. We're all about action here at the Grind to Greatness. And it is the simplest action step that you can do to affect almost every aspect of your life in a positive way. And that is to read the 5-second rule. Yes, read the 5-second rule. If you want to have something amazing to help you overcome fear and self-doubt, go download that book, read the 5-second rule. And we would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. I know Ashley and I talk about it. Literally, it's almost kind of creepy.
It's been in every episode.
I think we've almost mentioned it in every episode. It came out in February. That's the crazy thing. It hasn't even been out for very long, but it's that profound. I'm taking a course with Mel Robbins right now and just loving every second of it. The 5-second rule comes into play all the time. So go get that book.
She first talked about this 5-second rule in a video that she had probably, I don't know, don't quote me, but maybe 2 to 3 years ago, maybe 5, somewhere in that time frame. And the video was all about stop screwing yourself over and the F word, which she says the F word is fine. I'm doing fine. And then she talks about the 5-second rule. And when it hit me, I was like, wow, this is amazing. It took me a while to really understand it. But once she came out with the book and she went deep into it and really showed you how simple it is, and you can use it with anything. You can use it with anything. If you feel fear in talking to someone that you are interested in, just someone that you notice that you feel an attraction to, not even that type of attraction, just someone that you feel the urge to talk to, use the 5-second rule. If you are trying to get up in the morning out of bed, use the 5-second rule. You can use this in every aspect of your life. It's just tiny little changes that you can make that make you feel better whenever you get done doing it. Feel the fear and do it anyways.
Again, you guys are going to learn this because I know all of you out there are going to actually go read this book if you haven't already. But the reason this works and the science behind, of course, the science behind why this works is when you literally, and the countdown is extremely important in this. We're not just saying 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the hell of it because it sounds cute. Yeah. It's literally the science around counting down, awakening your prefrontal cortex in your brain, and then physically going to move to whatever action you need to take. That is going to literally cut off whatever fear, self-doubt, anxiety, whatever negative feeling that you have coming on, procrastination, etc. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Like legitimately, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Once you learn that simple tool and you read all the personal stories that she shares of the people whose lives have been changed because of that, the next thing that we want you guys to do is just stay persistent. This is, of course, a journey that we're all on, right? We all want something more in our lives. You're here listening to us because there's something that's off and we're giving you guidance in some way. And this is a community that we're building of people that want to pursue higher, a higher purpose. You got to stay persistent. Change doesn't happen overnight, right? This isn't like instant gratification. We are in an instant gratification society. And so it gets really challenging for people to stay persistent. We're going to talk about procrastination in a second, but when we're talking about staying persistent, I had been suffering from my own procrastination. Anytime I had to work on the podcast, I was like, sure, I love this. It's so much fun. There's some other things I had to do in life that I was just procrastinating about. But then I had to realize, I'm on this really a long, lifelong journey here. A long, lifelong journey. How prolific is that, Mary? And I had to tell myself, greatness doesn't happen overnight. I just wanted all the success right now, and it was stressing me out because there's more that has to be done. I still have to have a full-time business. I can't just do this podcast and Grind to Greatness full-time yet, even though I would love to do that. I wanted it right now, and so it was pissing me off. So I was having my own challenges around that, and I had to kind of say, just stay persistent. Be persistent.
Procrastination, back to Mel Robbins. Okay, so what she says about procrastination, and when I heard this, I immediately was able to identify my weaknesses. She says that procrastination is a way to deal with stress. Duh. I'm not duh to her, but duh to myself. I'm thinking, okay, so what happens is you're super stressed because you have probably a shit ton of things to do. You know, you have to run errands, go to the post office, go to court. You got to go to work. You got to cook dinner, do laundry. You got to work out. You got to go to your friend's house, pick up the kids. You have to do all this stuff. And so you have so many things to do that day that it stresses you out and it overwhelms you. And then you do nothing. I know everyone has done that at least once.
Like all the time.
Right. That's what I'm saying. At least once. When I was able to understand that procrastination is just stress, I was able to stop and go, okay, so if I don't get this done, I'm just going to continue my life as it is now. Or if I do go do this little minute, it could be a minute thing. If I do get this done, I'll probably feel good and I'll check something off my list. It's amazing to have the self-awareness tools to be able to recognize when you do stupid shit. I love this.
I guess the good thing about this for people is that she made a point to say procrastination is not like lack of willpower or laziness. Which I think that might give some relief to a lot of people out there listening. You're like, oh, thank God I'm not lazy and I just don't suck. I'm dealing with stress. Wow. And the funny thing is, you know, I've obviously read the 5-second rule. And like I just talked to you guys, I had my own like bouts of procrastination in the past 2 weeks. And so I knew when it was happening, like, oh shit, Mel Robbins talks about this. I had to go back and refer to the book and say, like, what's going on? There's obviously something going on that I'm stressed about. And it took me about 2 weeks to kind of figure out what the hell was going on. And now, you know, kind of kick my own self in the rear and say, okay, it's time to get over time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the way you can help cure this procrastination plague, again, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Acknowledge that you're dealing with procrastination. That's the first step. Bring it into your awareness. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever it is that you're procrastinating from, that task that you're trying not to do, just work on it for 5 minutes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just sit down and do it for 5 minutes. And then Mel says you have the freedom after 5 minutes to go watch some cat videos. The point is, if you actually sit down to start doing it, once 5 minutes pass up, you're probably going to continue working. So even though you get the freedom to go watch some cat videos, you'll probably still work.
You won't even notice the 5 minutes.
We're going to leave you guys with some tough love tips, but I think before we do that, let's kind of just recap everything that we talked about. We talked about fear and excitement, same physical state in your body, different perception from your brain. How do you cure that? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's an exciting anchor thought that you can think about when you start to feel that fear related to that fear? Fear is also surrounded by 3 types of pain: loss pain, process pain, and outcome pain. What if I lose something if I change? Changing is hard, it sucks. And what if the grass is not greener on the other side? Well, it's not focusing on the pain. When we focus on the pain, our brain is going to try to avoid the pain at all costs. So focus on the exciting part about that, the opposite of that. Again, perception is reality. And with limiting beliefs, what do? We got to bring them into our awareness. Rewrite your story. Think of the opposite. Think of the positive, the I am statements. Rewrite your story. Constantly go back to that vision that you guys have created. Go back to that what you want out of life. And that'll make it, you know, all these challenges that you're going to be dealing with will be worth it when you can think about what you want out of life. Go read the 5-second rule and stay persistent. So we're going to leave you with some tough love tips. Ashley, why don't you give our audience some tough love?
This is a Tony Robbins method, and it's all about making the things that are shoulds in your life now and turning them into must. So if you think about the things that you must do already, you must eat, you must sleep, you must put gas in your car, you must be able to feed your kids. You're going to make sure those things get done, right? And what we do is we should ourselves. Well, I should go to the gym. I should call my friend. I should check on my parents. I should go to the store. We should ourselves to death, and then we stress ourselves. We procrastinate. We put the inevitable on the back burner. They're all related to each other. So if we can find one thing that we can do to raise our standards and turn that should into a must, You must be successful. If you don't want it bad enough, you're not going to have it. Like Eric Thomas says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
Okay, my tough love tip for everyone is that letting fear and self-doubt hold you back is selfish. Yeah, I said it. Being selfish. What made me think of this is I was at a success training and, one of the speakers had talked about sharing our personal stories. Every single one of us has a unique story. And he gave a couple of examples of people that he knew that shared their story with others, that shared their own personal stories with others, then telling the story about the person that heard that was then impacted so much by that story that person either lost 100 pounds, paid off $50,000 in debt, maybe decided not to commit suicide. The fact that we all have our own experience, everyone has their own challenges, everyone has their own success stories, everyone has their own breakthroughs or their own experience, that if we're able to share it with the world, if we're able to show up the way we're supposed to show up, somebody is going to be positively impacted by that. So the fact that we continuously let fear and self-doubt hold us back from living our purpose, from being the best person, the best people we can be, it's a selfish act. Because now we know after listening to this episode, after learning the science, that it's just a perception of our reality. Fear is a liar. Fear and self-doubt are fake. It's something we're putting on ourselves. So stop being a baby. I'm going to say it. I've talked to myself like this too, guys. And get out there and go after what you want. You owe you, and you also owe the people around you that you love. That's Ashley's favorite thing. You owe you. Stop being selfish. It's totally internal. Grind to greatness, guys.
Don't cut yourself short, right?
Exactly. We gave you the steps. I'll wrap them up again. Bring it into your awareness. Rewrite your story. Always go back to your vision. Go read the 5-second rule and stay persistent, right? Download the Life Designer Toolkit that will get you started. We love you guys. Signing off.